Julie Marie, the creator of the Protective Diet, and I'm excited to show you my latest recipe. It was a request from one of my Protective Diet education students, Denise Norris. She requested fajitas, and I was so excited because fajitas used to be one of my favorite dishes to order. But I ordered steak fajitas covered in sour cream and guacamole, high in saturated fat, at a local Chicago Tex-Mex restaurant that I used to go to almost every week. And now I'm eating a protective diet, so I'm going to show you a version of it that fits right into that. So we're going to heat up a stainless steel pan. We don't have to heat it up all the way, but just turn it on to medium-high. You can start with a cold pan if you want. And you can see I'm using a portobello mushroom. It looks like this. You want to look for one with a nice smooth top to it, so it's nice and fresh looking. You cut the stem off and just slice it into big steak-like pieces like you see here. We're imitating steak fajitas with these portobello mushrooms, so we've eliminated a ton of saturated fat. We've made this dish heart healthy. We know now that even just one meal with saturated fat can contribute to a heart attack, can make changes within the body. All it takes is one meal. So we're eliminating that risk by using portobello mushrooms instead of steak. And we're also using one full onion, and I've sliced this into big pieces, and we're just laying this in this dry pan and letting it heat up, trying to get it onto the bottom of the pan. And we'll move this around so it will get a chance to brown. The browning of these mushrooms and these onions is what gives this dish all the flavor. We're going to add some spices and seasoning, but the browning is key. That's why I'm making this video today, to show you how to brown without any oil or any water. A lot of you that are eating an oil-free diet already are doing this water sauteing. Forget the water. Let's just keep this at a nice medium to high heat where it doesn't get away from us. It won't burn. It's going to release all the water from the mushrooms and the onions, and then once that water releases, it's going to brown really nicely, and that's going to give us all the flavor we need. So I'm just going to leave this alone, checking it every once in a while, and yes, the mushrooms are going to start to stick to the bottom, but allow them to. We're going to add a liquid to this once they get to a nice golden brown, and it's going to release from the bottom of the pan. If it starts to brown too much and it looks like it's getting away from you, turn the heat down or pick the pan up and move it off the heat. Don't be afraid to take it off the heat if it starts to get too brown. You can see now that the browning is starting to happen on these onions, and a little bit of moisture is releasing from these mushrooms. We can turn them. Hair tongs like this is a great tool in the kitchen if you don't have a pair already. They're only a few dollars. They work much better than if you're using a spoon, because you can get in there with accuracy and turn your mushrooms. We're not stirring them because we don't want to break the mushrooms up. We want them in pieces like we get a steak fajita. We want them in strips of steak, like presentation. So you can see they are not sticking to the bottom of this pan, and when I tell people that I cook without any oil, they're like, well, oh my gosh, doesn't everything burn and stick to the bottom of the pan? And seeing it is believing it. That's why I'm making this video, because so many people, they're confused. They just don't understand how I can possibly cook without any oil. These are chefs that I'm talking to that are trained, and they are only accustomed to cooking with oil, so it's understandable that a home chef is going to be confused by this technique until they see it with their own eyes. And when I show them, they learn how to save hundreds of calories per day by cooking this way. Now you can see there's a lot of moisture that's bubbling out of these mushrooms, and that's what we want to happen. Now if it got away from you and it burned on the bottom of the pan, you had the pan too hot. That's why you want to bring it to medium-high heat and then turn it down to about medium. When you're first starting out doing this browning technique, start off at a medium heat. It's going to take you a little longer, but then you're not going to have an issue. The other thing you can do is keep a little bit of water nearby. And if the pan does get away from you, take it off the heat. By get away from you, I mean it gets too hot and it starts to burn. Take it off the heat and add a little bit of water to cool it down. But I don't want you water sauteing, otherwise you're not going to get this browning flavor. See the browning that's happening in the bottom of this pan? This is all the flavor. The flavor is not in the oil, it's in that browning of the mushrooms and in the bottom of the pan. And all that browning is going to get incorporated into our sauce, and it's going to be so delicious. These are just about done. You can see every one of these onions has a nice golden browning to it. We can let it go a little longer. Now you see why I cut the mushrooms as large as I did. I could have cut them even larger because they shrink up as they cook. And we want them to resemble pieces of meat. So the next thing I'm going to do is stop the browning on the bottom of the pan. And you can see I could let this go a few more minutes. It's not going to burn. We're going to keep the heat on, and I have my spice mix here that you'll find in the recipe. And this cools off the bottom of the pan really nicely. And I want you to stir this, and this is going to get all that browning off the bottom of the pan and incorporate it into our sauce. This sauce is going to get cooked up and soaked into everything. We're going to add our bell peppers, because that is a key ingredient in fajitas. And when you're cutting these peppers, cut them nice and big. These are for fajitas. They'll shrink up as they cook. You want these big, nice big chunks. So now I'm going to grab a spoon. This is when it would be helpful to get the sauce incorporated onto the veggies. These have a little more flavor in them and seasoning than traditional fajitas. That's because we're not using meat, so we need to add the flavor in the spices. And these are all coated nicely with the sauce. So what I'm going to do now is put a lid on this and let this steam up in here nicely to get those peppers nice and tender. Okay, our veggies have been steaming up with the lid on for about 10 minutes now. I turned them down to very low heat just so that it wouldn't burn on the bottom with the sauce. So simmer them for about 10 minutes. And then after about 10 minutes, try and keep the lid on it during that simmering time, because every time the steam comes out, it will stop cooking your veggies. You want them so that they're nice and tender to bite, but they're not mushy. So this is good to go. It's got a nice sauce to it. And I'm going to start with a tortilla. And I warmed my tortilla a little bit in my toaster oven. You can put them in the oven for a few minutes. And just load it up with the veggies. Make sure to get a couple pieces of mushroom and different colored peppers in when you're serving them up. And then my favorite part is the guacamole, and this is guacamole made without any avocados. You'd never notice. Put some guacamole on there. And this is sour cream dream. This is a fat-free sour cream, and it's dairy-free. Loaded up on there. And this is how I've been doing it on a protective diet. And I'm excited to bring this to all of my students. And if you're interested in eating your way to a slimmer, healthier you, enroll in Protective Diet Education. It'll get you there. I'm watching success across the board with all of my students. Take care and best of health to you.